On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, not long ago, not far away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.
Hey everybody, welcome back. We're the Menschwarmers. I'm Jamie. I'm here with my co-host Gabe. Gabe, how you doing, buddy?
You know, I'm doing great. I'm about to embark on a nice, 5 days of solo parenting. My wife is going away for a few days, so it'll just be me and the boy hanging out. Looking forward to that.
Sure.
I came back from the land of some of our people, Arizona, where I took part in some Jewish life, sitting by the pool, kvetching, eating, complaining about the price of everything. But now I'm back, post-March break and ready to gab about our favorite topic. Who's Jewish?
Yeah, after a little Purim in the desert, we're rounding into spring. It is all the typical portents of spring. Up where we are, the snow is finally gone.
It is gone.
The grass is back out. You are repeatedly resisting my demands that we go play golf in
as early
slightly
as
above freezing weather, but give it another few weeks and we'll be back out on the course.
We'll be back on it soon enough.
We're in that nice, meaty part of the calendar between Purim and Passover, and that of course means there's another spring tradition, a Gentile one, a non-specifically Jewish one. But I'm talking, of course, about March Madness. It's coming up very, very soon. As we're recording this, they are playing the first four now.
I have been to many Purim parties that one should have described as March Madness.
March Madness is feel free to co-op that.
Yeah, for a Purim party.
You can.
I've said
absolutely.
this before, but I think I've told many people, whoever would listen to this, the craziest party I ever went to in university, going to, a work hard, play hard school like McGill was various Purim parties around town. Right. It was always the craziest.
At the Chabad house or just at.
I mean, Chabad house Purim party was always intense. Chabad house was always really, really intense, as were the parties at just sort of like the local synagogue. I think they called it Ghetto Shul in Montreal. Those are some crazy parties.
The Ghetto Shul, and that's really for non-Canadian or non-Montreal listeners. The McGill Ghetto is just the student ghetto. That is how it's referred there, and that's why it's called the Ghetto Shul.
And I guess friend of the pod, or our sister pod host Avi Feingold is quite close with Labish, who's the rabbi at Ghetto Shul. So there's a little Jewish geography kissing cousins right there.
I mean, most Jewish holidays have some sort of wine consumption. Ritual wine consumption is not an uncommon thing.
Not at all.
But Purim seems to be the only one where there's you're commanded to get pretty drunk. And love to see our youth running with that.
Exactly. And as sort of, I guess the term would be overgrown child.
Sure.
One of the most exciting things I thought, at least one of the most exciting things I had about going to these Purim parties was the unlimited candy. There was always a spectacular amount of candy at all of these parties.
Well, and now you have grown-up money. You could have unlimited candy.
I could have unlimited candy. One year at the Chabad McGill Purim party, there was a chocolate fountain, and like a bunch of drunk
stuck your whole hand in.
People were. I didn't, but people were.
That's good.
Anyway, back to the March Madness of sports.
Yeah, that's right. So this tournament will, it's starting in a few days, or start technically today, and it will run right up basically until Passover starts. 3 weekends in a row, and there is some really, really exciting news at the top. 3 of the 4 number 1 seeds are being coached by Jews, and that is like spectacular.
It is spectacular.
This is like
what we lack in actual like playing. We can really it comes back in leadership,
I guess so. So let's just run down those 3 teams. So we have Auburn, coached by Bruce Pearl, Florida, coached by Todd Golden, Todd was, of course, a student, I guess, of Pearl's. He worked on the Auburn
protege.
team.
He was an oyster.
A protege,
or an oyster that Bruce helped turn into a pearl.
Sure. A golden something. Anyways,
Yes.
he a pearl. We're going to torture this metaphor. And Jon Scheyer of Duke.
A pearl before swine.
Number one
That's
seed
what he is
overall. That's right. And so those 3 number 1 seeds, I think anyone listening to this understands the way the NCAA men's tournament works. There's 64 teams in the field, 4 fields, 4 regions of 16. So a number 1 seed in each means that they're the favorite to make it to the Final Four. It's unlikely that all 3 of those teams will make it to the Final Four, but it would be surprising if none of them did. Usually there's at least 2 number 1 teams. And this is pretty, I mean, I really do think this is something we're celebrating. We've talked before about how there's something sort of specific about college basketball coach that's like a real vibe.
Yes. And it's like it's halfway between camp counselor and like disappointed parent.
I think that's absolutely right, because
both of which Jewish people really have a corner on.
That's true. And it's very unique because I think of like an NFL head coach, their vibe being field marshal, of the entire thing.
And total psychopath.
Overseeing, coordinate. Psychopath comes with the territory, I think, for most of these people. If you're a professional coach, you got there by outworking other people and by being more determined. You have grit. You can tell these people what to do. But football coach, and there have been Jewish pro football coaches, obviously, and college football coaches, but that's like field marshal. It's very tactical. It's very oversight. Baseball manager is more like vibes. You can have a baseball manager who doesn't seem to know the X's and O's part of things too well, but
he's not
really
an X's and O's people. That's true. It's a very common thing people say.
And I think that's true of NBA basketball coach as well, where it's just sort of you need to have respect of the guys who are playing for you, who are all adults and are grown men and have their own opinions and thoughts about the world. You need to have their trust. But college basketball coaches, you have this group of 10 to 15 20-year-old kids, 19, 20-year-old kids who are looking to you for I guess leadership and fatherhood and tactics and you have to you said, it is sort of like a camp. It's your camp counselor analogy is right, because it is about that size too, right? It's a smaller team.
15.
A basketball team is a smaller team.
The basketball team is a cabin.
Exactly. So that these 3 Jewish guys are all really good at it. I mean, Jon Scheyer obviously was a very high level player. He played at Duke. Todd Golden played ball at St. Mary's. It's not that he was no slouch. He played in Israel as well.
St. Mary's. That's going to come up later. A Jewish player at a Catholic school, or a Jewish player at a Christian school. That's going to come up later. Not to put any.
Yeah.
I think we're getting there.
A golden gale.
Yeah, exactly.
But very impressive to see them. These guys succeed at such a high level. I mean, Bruce Pearl is probably is the longest tenured and has had some real success in the past at the NCAA tournament. He took Auburn to the Final Four in 2019. He won a championship at Southern Indiana. 30 years ago. He coached at Milwaukee, coached at Tennessee for a while. Back
when schools like Southern Indiana had a chance at winning the championship.
Well, Division II championship.
Oh, Division II. Oh, yeah, they can always win something like that.
Yeah, sorry. He's had a lot of success. Obviously, he's had an illustrious career. I think probably as well known for anything these days online for being a very outspoken supporter of Israel. He has brought Auburn to Israel 4 games in the past. He's been very outspoken, and I saw him wrapping tefillin the other day. So good on Bruce Pearl for having more patience with people demanding him to wrap tefillin than I do.
With Phil Budnick's on the street.
They came to my door. They knocked on my door 2 weeks ago and asked me.
Really? Did they ask you if you were Jewish?
Yeah, they did.
Did they bother with that question? I assume you have a mezuzah. You're not an animal.
Yeah. And I was busy working. Let's say I didn't quite have the moment for it. So that's pretty impressive for the top three seeds on the men's side. And there are a few other players we want to talk about. But first, I want to mention a shout out to the other number 1 seed, which is Houston. Houston's coach is not Jewish, but Houston's starting point guard is a young man named Emmanuel Sharp. Now, despite the name, because Manny Sharp absolutely, sounds like a macher at the country club. But Emmanuel Sharp, not
Totally.
Jewish, but was born in Tel Aviv. His dad is named Derek Sharp, and Derek is a legendary player with Maccabi Tel Aviv. He played. He's an American guy. He played basketball at South Florida, and then had a 15-year career at Maccabi. Coached for a couple years under David Blatt. When he was there, he met his wife, who's actually Canadian. Her name is Justine Ellison. She was a basketball player as well. She played for the Varsity Blues and was playing basketball in Israel. They met, and one of the 4 kids, their oldest is Emmanuel Sharp, who's the point guard at Houston. So very cool. Emmanuel has played for Team Israel. I think he played for the U16 team, or maybe the U18 team. He has some Hebrew letters tattooed on his arm, which, again, very cool. Not a Jewish guy, but obviously has a significant Jewish connection.
Yeah, I would say you wonder how many non-Jews have played for Team Israel in various sports. I know there's lots of, Druze or Arab Israelis that play on various, on the soccer team. We've talked to our friend AJ Edelman, got some on the bobsled team, but I'm curious about, have there been sort of African-American, or I should say Black Israeli players, who aren't Jewish, who might be Christian? You don't think about it, but it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think the story with Derek Sharp is that his first wife, not Emmanuel's mother, but his first wife was an Israeli citizen, and so he got citizenship through that. Otherwise, I mean, it is possible to get Israeli citizenship as someone living there for a long period of time, but obviously a little more difficult for someone who's not Jewish. But obviously, there's been a real connection between players who have been there for long periods of time and Israel. Amari Stoudemire, probably the best example of converting. Yes,
probably the best example.
Becoming an Israeli citizen, becoming Jewish, and all that. Anthony Parker, who had a short NBA career before a longer Israeli career. When he came back to the NBA, he wore number 18. In honor of his time in Israel. I think has been outspoken about that. He won an Israel League MVP. I think it was a real.
I think he won Eurobasket too. There are some real legends here.
Exactly. So I don't know. That'd be interesting to find out if there's any other American players, like non-Jewish American players, who have gone to Israel and stuck around, become citizens, and play for the senior team. I mean, I think unfortunately there isn't a lot of senior international basketball, except at the highest level, that people really pay attention to. So I don't know that Israel's ever made a FIBA World Championship at the whatever the top division, the world champ, whatever the 12 teams that go to a FIBA. But probably I'm sure they've competed in European Cups, and we've seen the young team compete. So those are the number 1 seeds. All have some sort of Jewish or Israeli connection.
Some sort of Jewish connection, yeah.
And so let's talk about a few of the other Jewish players that are in the tournament this year. I think probably the number 1 prospect, the number 1 Jewish American basketball prospect right now is Danny Wolf of Michigan.
American Israeli. I think he's officially Israeli as well.
Oh, okay. I can't remember where he was born, but Michigan is number 5 seed in the South Regional. They'll play Auburn if they win. If they both win 3 games, I guess. Sorry, if they both win 2 games, I think they'll face off based on that. And Danny was at Yale before transferring to Michigan this year. We talked about him before, that he's really our tallest Jew. He's 7 feet tall.
Yeah, he's the biggest one.
He's averaging 13 and 10 this year and a block and a half per game. Pretty solid, pretty significant. He's competed for Israel at the FIBA U20s. And has been big, was a big part of that team. And, based on mock drafts that I've looked at, probably going to be a late first round selection, or potentially a early second round selection, and has the academic chops as well, because he went to Yale. The Ivy League schools don't let just anyone in.
So there's another player I want to talk about briefly, and maybe you add this, and I don't mean to jump on you.
No, go ahead.
I think Danny Wolf is a great way to lead into discussing, one of the more obvious named Jewish athletes, Sam Silverstein. So Sam Silverstein was on the 2022 Maccabi Team USA game. He was the captain of the Harvard basketball team, another Jewish Ivy League player. This year, he transferred and played at California Baptist University. Not a place you would expect us to see a Sam Silverstein. They did not make the tournament. So Danny Wolf is carrying the Ivy League transfer Jews torch by himself, it seems.
Yeah, that is true. But I should point out that Danny is not alone on Michigan as a Jewish player, because there's at least one other Jewish player, Harrison Hochberg, from New York City. He is a sophomore. He's 6'7". Hasn't been getting a lot of playing time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he is definitely Jewish. I mean, I think that's confirmed Jewish. And there's unconfirmed Jew on that team, who is Vlad Golden. So Vlad is from Russia, and his last name is Golden, Goldin. He's 7'1". Yeah. He is, really the front court with Danny. I don't know. I've looked at if anyone has confirmation, anyone in Michigan can look this up. It can be a little tricky with Russian Jews in terms of, whether the Judaism has descended down through the ranks, or if it's just a surname that's being that's being donated from someone years ago and lost ancient tradition. But Vladislav Golden is on Michigan as well. So really, I would say that is the most Jewish team. There's a lot of connections between Jews and the Big Ten and Michigan, I think, specifically.
Yeah, Michigan is being a very, very popular Jewish school, especially in the hockey world.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I think there's plenty of Jewish Michigan fans anyways, but if you're a Jewish fan and you want someone to cheer on beyond the number one teams that we talked about, then Michigan, I think, is a good place to put your hopes.
Might be your place to do it.
Yeah, there's two other people I wanted to mention just before we move on to the women's side. There is a kid at Yale named Riley Fox. Couldn't confirm that he was Jewish, but I think he might be. Mm-hmm. Yale was the 13 seed. Ivy League team often has a Jewish player or two, like Danny was before, and they'll face Michigan in the second round if they both win. So that would be an interesting, reuniting between Danny and Michigan. And the last person I want to mention is actually, I would say quite a star, and that's Alex Caravan of UConn, 6'8" junior forward, and he has at least one Jewish grandparent. That's what I found out. So Alex Caravan comes from Soviet background. Like, his parents were Soviet or fled the Soviet Union in the 80s, and his mother is Jewish or has at least a Jewish parent. Isaiah Abraham, who's his teammate, is not Jewish as far as I can tell.
That's quite the Mike Jacobs All-Star.
Mike Jacobs All-Star. Quite the Mike Jacobs All-Star, but and I think we talked about this before. Plenty of African Americans who have very Old Testament-y names. Not odd to see a Black American named Isaiah. So his last name happens to be Abraham. Isaiah Abraham. Yep. As far as we can tell, we would be happy to have him. Obviously, he is a freshman who hasn't played much, but might have some run in the future with UConn. But some good names there. That's the I would say the sporting interest for Jews on the men's side of the tournament.
There's one small other story that I want to mention, which is a couple of the teams in the NIL tournament. One of the biggest snubs from Selection Sunday this past week was Stanford University, who finished the season with the
NIT, not the NIL.
Yeah, sorry, NIT. Yes, they finished the season with a 20-13 record. But the selection committee determined that not good enough for the tournament. They're going to be in the NIT. And they're led by a point guard. Where is he? Named by Benny Gaylor, who was a real high school star, who went to Stanford and worked his way up. And now, he plays in every game. He doesn't start, but he'll play in every game after being a walk-on Stanford. So unfortunately, if you're watching the NIT, if you like seeing that, I think you should cheer for Stanford, and not just for the academics. I've got a couple of shout outs on the women's side. We talked about the number one seeds. 3 of the 4 number one seeds are being coached by Jews. On the women's side, one of the number one seeds, but, a team that some have argued is the number one seed in the whole country. I do believe they have the best record in the country, is the University of Southern California Trojans, led by Lindsay Gottlieb, who's run the team since 2021. Previously, she was the coach of the California Golden Bears, going from, I guess, Berkeley to USC. It's a pretty good jump. And when she was quite young in 2013, I think she was, in 2013, she was only, that would be 37 years old or 35 years old, I should say. She led the team to a Final Four appearance. So it's very impressive. She's sort of believed as one of the great coaches currently coaching in the United States. And she's the coach at USC now.
Very impressive to see their run this year. I think, they're really going to be standouts in this tournament. Always really competitive, but obviously a different land, a different landscape in the women's field this year since last year. I think there's so much attention to it, and so many great players who graduate. I think, luckily for USC, but they have plenty of great players.
They still have Juju Watkins, who's one of the best college players in the country. Right. And I think the expectation is, it'll come down to between them and South Carolina, who did lose a game this year. But the two USCs,
the battle of the battle of the USCs, or
the battle of the U's SC, as we should say, the U's SC. So she is probably the most relevant basketball coach on the women's side. But I did want to point out what is a really great women's Mike Jacobs All-Star. We don't really talk about these very often, which is Katie Abramson. Mike Jacobs All-Star. Oh yeah. Who is she is the coach of the Georgia Bulldogs basketball team. And she goes by Abe. Her players call her Abe. So Abe Abramson is sort of someone you could expect in many delis all across North America. But her name is Kay Noel and goes by Katie, growing up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I don't know of any Jews who are named Noel or Noel, for that matter.
No.
I guess Noel Shamsky from Frasier, but I think Katie Abramson, unfortunately, is not Jewish. We've also got a couple of Jewish women's players, sort of leading the pack is Yarden Garzon from Indiana, who's a 12th seed, and they're sort of a 12th seed, they're a 9 seed. And 9 seeds can always win, a game. Anything's possible with a 9th seed. And she's sort of expected to play well. She was an all Big Ten freshman last year, and sort of is expected to be a crucial part of the team during this tournament. And then the other Israeli we found, or Jewish athlete we were talking about, is Romy Levy, who's playing a key role on USF, University of South Florida, who is widely seen as an upset pick. They're 12th seed. So anything could happen. Anything could happen during their first game. And it would be pretty cool to see, a couple of Israelis lead the way. They both are very intense looking people. But one thing that's very, very interesting about Romy Levy is her grandmother, her booby, was a woman named Tamara Schumacher, who was the first woman to ever compete for Israel in the Olympics. In 1952.
Wow. Very cool.
So pretty cool.
Yarden is, she still has another year of eligibility, which he'll assume she's going to stay in school for another year, but likely will be a WNBA draft pick. She's being touted as sort of a late first round, early second round pick. Obviously, we're talking about a year and a half from now. So hard to say exactly how that will go, but definitely something to keep an eye on in the future for those WNBA watchers.
If we also want to poke about the Ivy League, there's a first 4 game featuring Columbia University playing Washington. That first 4 game is either tomorrow or Thursday. I don't quite remember. But one of the sort of key Ivy League players is Riley Weiss of Columbia University, who's, she's a New Yorker. She is like grew up in not quite Westchester, but grew up sort of mid-state. Played at Columbia as like a real New York Jew who's taken Columbia hopefully far into the tournament.
I just wanted to mention this isn't quite a shout out necessarily, but we should say that Lindsay Gottlieb has no relation to Doug Gottlieb, who is a radio host turned NCAA coach now, coaching the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay.
So there's two different Gottliebs.
Yeah, 2 different Gottliebs. I forget. Sorry. What is the University of Wisconsin Green Bay? Oh, the Phoenix. Okay.
The Phoenix.
Anonymous 4-28 first season. Which is quite a bummer.
They did lose 20 games in a row. However, a Phoenix can only rise from the ashes.
Sure. and even from the ashes of northern Lake Michigan, right? That's where Green Bay is.
Yes.
Anyways, quite the infamous first start. Doug has been involved in Maccabi games before, coaching for Team USA. He's also been sort of a protege of Bruce Pearl. Played some pro basketball overseas and in Israel as well. But mostly been a sports analyst, and I think got the sort of most play this year because he got in a fight with LeBron James, which is very funny.
Yeah.
Mostly
he's
criticizing.
He's a real like Wisconsin guy.
Yeah. And he basically criticized the way, LeBron James has been handling his son's transition to the NBA, let's say, and the way that he has championed that. His fight with Stephen A. Smith the other day, and LeBron has been like criticizing him too because the team he coached lost 28 games this year. So, we'll see how it goes for Doug in UWGB. And, no relationship to Lindsay, but funny that we got multiple Gottliebs in college basketball these days. Stirring things up.
And so actually, you've taken me to another, if you want to talk about other multiple Gottliebs, I've gone even further. Doug's brother, Greg Gottlieb, is an assistant coach for the Grand Canyon University Antelopes, who are playing their first round game in the women's tournament this week. So there are 3
exciting.
Gottliebs in Final Four tournaments.
I think that gives a pretty good view of what to keep an eye out for in college basketball the next few weeks. If you're like us, you'll be breaking your personal embargoes on the United States for NCAA tournament action. There's only so far we can take it, and I'll definitely be watching out for those Jewish players, and we'll continue to keep an eye on them as they progress through the tournament. Why don't we take a quick break and we'll come back, just go over some news from the last few weeks.
On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, not long ago, not far away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.
Welcome back. And before we get fully into our other sports, I want to close the loop on our college basketball kibitz with one more Mike Jacobs All-Star from the women's side. We talked about the coach. We talked about the player, Yarden, plays for University of Illinois. But her coach is a woman, the name is going to sound extremely familiar to every listener of this podcast and forever. University of Illinois women's basketball team coached by Shauna Green.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good. That's a good one.
Yeah,
very, very on the nose.
Shauna Green doesn't seem to be Jewish. Is from Clinton, Iowa. Went to Providence, Dayton, Northwestern. But she's coached in the tournament a number of times before. But Shauna Green, coach of the Illinois Fighting Illini on the women's side. Jamie, what else is up in the news of sports this week?
The next person I want to talk about is a former guest on our podcast. And we're talking, of course, about Israeli golfer Letitia Beck. Letitia is the only Israeli golfer who's played on the LPGA Tour, the PGA Tour for that point. And she won an event 2 weeks ago. She won the Atlantic Beach Classic on the Epson Tour. She finished that up, followed that up with a tied for 8 at the Iowa Golf Classic, and she is, in prime position to get promoted back to the LPGA. We talked about her last week.
So we did. So now that she's won this tournament, presumably she can give Jake Adams the $20 she owes him.
That's right. Our guest last episode, Jake Adams, said that she owed him $20, I think jokingly, but yeah, there should be some prize money that came along with that. And she should be able to pay him back. I honestly, I can't say I'm an expert on how LPGA promotion works, but I think winning an event and placing top 10 and 2 others probably puts Letitia in pretty good position to go up. Yeah,
exactly. Pretty good. Usually gets her a good, it usually gets her an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something would have to go seriously wrong, as our close personal friend Dan Rappaport once said. Something would have to go wrong for her not to get it from here.
Right. One other piece of news I wanted to highlight is that former Packers running back A.J. Dillon has signed with the Philadelphia Eagles. A.J. missed the entire 2024 season, I believe, with a neck injury. I'm not exactly sure it ended up what the diagnosis was, but he didn't play it. He didn't play at all. He was ruled out during training camp or during the preseason. And now he's going to be joining the Super Bowl winners. So that's pretty exciting for him. Probably not going to be taking the number one job from Saquon Barkley. But being the backup to the best running back in the league is not anything to sneeze at.
It's nothing to shake a lulav at.
So pretty excited to see how he does. Obviously, lots of Jewish Eagles fans, and they're coming off a Super Bowl where everybody's overworked. So I think if he's healthy, he's going to get Quadzilla is going to get a lot of work for the Eagles.
So the next time we meet, we talk about on the show. The next time baseball season will be in full swing.
That's true. I mean,
very partial swing. It's in check swing right now, and that 2 games happen and then they stop, and then in 2 weeks there'll be more games.
Do you like the Japan series conceptually?
No, I mean, sorry.
Me
yes,
neither.
I like that the teams are traveling. But I think they maybe I don't understand either professional athlete body optimization or jet lag. But do they have to do it 2 weeks early? That's why, so they can all adjust. But maybe do it 3 days before, and they all fly on planes with beds. They can figure it out.
No, I think they should just make it an exhibition games. It is totally meaningless to do these as regular season games. They have to do this weird thing where they play 10 days in advance. I think just for the exact reason you said, of just the travel is significant and annoying. And then they say, oh no, but these games are real. They matter. And, I know it's a long season, but still, it's just 2 games. Just make them exhibition matches.
Do they really need to milk the Japanese public for that extra dollars for a meaningful game?
Do you want to learn the horrible truth, or you want to watch Shohei Ohtani hit some dingers? I think we know Major League Baseball wants every dollar they can get, but I just feel like if they were exhibition games, they would be as successful as not. So, yes, we will do a comprehensive baseball preview for our next episode. Tune into that. If you're a baseball fan, you're definitely going to want to hear about all the Jews in Major League Baseball this year. And we will be back in a few weeks to talk about some pre-Passover stuff and get ready for the baseball season. Our signs of spring continue. Life comes back to normal. Golf, baseball, Passover, all those things, all those great things.
The problem that's happening for me now with it is that my son's birthday is the day of the first Seder. So I need to figure out how to explain to a 4-year-old that he's getting a matzah cake.
Right. That's tricky. It's
tricky.
I wish you luck with that. You can be the he will be the son who knows how to ask the question about why is this birthday cake not like all the others.
I think he will also be the wicked child very shortly into that evening.
Well, I wish you good luck with that. Anyways, for everybody else, we'll be back with you soon. We're brought to you as always by the Canadian Jewish News. You can find our podcast and everything else we do on the Canadian Jewish News' website, the cjn.ca, and follow us on Twitter at Menschwarmers. We're still out there tweeting the good fight on occasion, and we will certainly be with you during March Madness, tweeting about Jewish basketball players and coaches, and
tweeting every time Danny Wolf makes a 3-pointer.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be back with you soon. Thanks for listening.
On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, Not Long Ago, Not Far Away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.